It's on sale this week, UFC 155 here in Las Vegas, Saturday, December the 29th. This is a pretty exciting one, man. Junior Dos Santos, heavyweight champion, being challenged by Cain Velasquez. A question I had for you just right off the bat is how much of a fluke, if it's fair to call it a fluke, do you think JDS's win over Cain Velasquez in that first round of the UFC on Fox card was?
He clipped him.
Yeah.
Got on top of him and hammered him. So, I mean, it's the only loss Cain Velasquez has ever had. And you know the sport. Velasquez is a machine, man. This guy's really bummed out. He liked being the world champion. He wants his title back. A lot of talk about game plans in that fight. I think he's going to have a much different game plan, Velasquez, in this fight.
I hear a lot of people talking about the heavyweight division and how exciting it is now. Alistair Overeem coming back around. There's a lot of really good fighters that are kind of on their way up. Do you think that as we sit today, that the heavyweight division in the UFC is the best that it's ever been?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Obviously, it wasn't too shabby when Brock was here either. Brock made it a lot of fun. But there's so many new up-and-coming guys right now, which is very exciting. And then, obviously, Bigfoot Silva looked good in his last fight. So the long-winded answer to your question is yes. The heavyweight division looks awesome.
So what about Brock Lesnar? Because there's been rumblings about him possibly being interested in coming back. He showed up at that UFC a couple of months ago. What's your position?
He's done.
He'll never come back.
Called me a couple days ago. He's never coming back.
What did he give you a reason why?
Just said he's not. His body is. He can wrestle, but he can't fight.
That's a bummer. Well, so it goes.
But he was contemplating coming back.
And you would have been open to it?
Yeah.
Was there any truth to the rumor that was going around that you were trying to make a Brock versus Fedor fight?
Could be.
Yeah. So now that Brock's not coming back, any interest in Fedor?
Neither is Fedor.
Ah,
wow.
They're both retired.
Damn. Well, what about this? And there's a lot of talk about super fights and you trying to get the big ones done. Everyone's talking about Jon Jones and Anderson Silva, and we know that Jon Jones, of course, has the fight with Chael Sonnen coming up in April after his coaching stint on The Ultimate Fighter. But what about these super fights? What's the real story on these? Are you trying to get these done, or is it just a pipe dream for fans that are just speculating?
I've said it many times that pipe dreams until everything lines up. Like I said, the sport, man. George St. Pierre's in for a tough fight against Carlos Condit.
Mm-hmm.
He wins that fight. Anderson Silva's down. He wants to fight him. We'll start talking. Anderson Silva GSP would happen first.
And is that the sort of fight that you would do like in a stadium somewhere? Would that be potentially like a stadium showdown in Brazil or maybe Cowboy Stadium, something like that?
Definitely.
Yeah. And how excited are you in the position that you are to make these big super fights? Is that something that you're really hungry for?
Yeah, no, I love it. How much fun was Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva? I mean, from the weigh-ins to the fight, all of it was just incredible.
I'm actually excited about Jon Jones and Chael Sonnen. I've heard a lot of people bag on this, and a lot of people say, Chael doesn't deserve this shot at the title, and he's talked his way into the title fight. How do you respond to that first?
First of all, Chael Sonnen, the reason this fight happened is because Chael Sonnen's the only one that stepped up to fight Jon Jones. Those type of guys, I'll throw in a fight any day of the week. All the people that are complaining that, what about Machida? What about this guy? Go right down the list. I called them all. Dan Henderson pulled out of the fight. Then I called all the other guys. None of them wanted to take the fight. Now they want to cry that they don't have an opportunity. I offered them all this fight. Every one of them turned it down. Chael Sonnen took this fight on 8 days' notice. 8 days' notice. I'll go with that guy every time.
Was there any ever thought, because Jon Jones pretty much has cleaned out the light heavyweight division. There's a few guys who are up and coming, but there's still a few fights away in that division who we still haven't seen Jones fight. But, as Jon Jones gets older and his skill set is continuing to improve and he continues to add on muscle, is there thought in the next year or so that he might start taking fights at heavyweight?
Yeah, I don't ever tell a guy to move up or do this or do that. There's been times when I've tried to persuade somebody to move up or down. Say,
little elbow to the ribs for Frankie Edgar. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's their decision to do what they want, to fight at whatever weight they choose to. It's like when we talk about, why would we want to see Anderson Silva versus George St. Pierre? Anderson Silva's too big for him. You don't think Jon Jones is too big for Anderson Silva? I mean, it's the same exact argument. Jon Jones could fight at heavyweight, and possibly Anderson Silva could fight at 205. He's had some of his best fights and his best performances at 205.
If you could have it your way, what would you rather have? A guy like Anderson Silva, who has just been so dominant in his division, who just decides to stay there, or would you rather, like to see him move up and test themselves after they've cleaned out a division?
What people don't realize is how hard it really is to move up a weight class and be able to compete at a higher weight. The fact that Anderson Silva's been so dominant at 185 pounds, and he can move up to 205 and look even more impressive, guys like that don't come along often.
One final question along those lines. Like I said, moving up to heavyweight, Jon Jones would be fighting some very, very tough opponents. Cain Velasquez is huge. Alistair Overeem is huge. There's been talk of there's been rumblings by the fans that they want to see a cruiserweight division. And with the heavyweight division as deep as it is today, are we any closer to seeing a cruiserweight division come to fruition?
I don't think so. Because if you look at the heavyweight division and you look at the light heavyweight division, they're not both overly stacked. They're not like the 170 and 155 pound division. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're not that stacked where you could create another division in between there. There's no way.
Let me ask you this, Dana. There's been a lot. I've heard, fans and seen fans talking to you on Twitter, and it seems like for the first time, and maybe I'm mistaken on this, but it seems like for the first time, regularly you're kind of having to defend some of your decisions over at the UFC with the number of events that you guys are putting on. Is it frustrating for you, being in the position that you are, to constantly have to deal with all of these critical fans saying, oh, you guys are doing this wrong or doing this wrong? And why do you think there's been kind of a surge in people telling you how to do your job?
Well, there's no doubt about it. That the reason that people have the idea that there's too many guys are getting injured left and right. There's too many injuries is what there's been. We've been on this bad luck streak of injuries. If you look at how we laid out last year was supposed to be insane. We've got insane fights laid out this year. Hopefully we can keep them together and we don't get injuries. Doesn't matter if I have 3 fights a year or 300 fights. If guys get injured, they're getting injured. There's nothing you can do about that. But as far as the fans, giving input, I've been hearing that stuff since day one.
Well, you gave them what we wanted. We wanted more free fights. We got more free fights. Yeah. We're happy when we don't have the fights. Now we're not happy when we do get the fights.
Yeah, it's never, trust me, nobody's ever going to be happy and go, this is perfect. You guys are doing
you guys nailed it.
Fantastic job.
You're done. That's the final question that I want to ask you today is, what you do is certainly a grind, and you seem like you really have a passion for every single day that you're at this job and you love it. Has there been more days recently where you're feeling frustrated, or is this as fun as day one for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great job. I'm very blessed to be able to do what I'm doing and love what I'm doing. And everybody always asks me, what's the worst thing about your job? If I had to pick one worst thing about my job, maybe it's the back-to-back travel, but it's still not a bad thing. I go to all the coolest cities in the world. We put on events that are packed wall to wall with people who love what we do as much as we do. I couldn't, I could not complain about my job.
Is there like an end game for you though? Do you go, okay, when I have $3 billion in the bank, I'm going to retire then?
No, when we set out to do what we set out to do 13 years ago, build a sport where this thing's in every single country all over the world. I will have achieved what my goal was getting into this thing, and maybe it'll be time to wrap it up, or maybe it won't. I don't know.
Did you just tell me that you'll retire when you've actually accomplished world domination?
I think so.
Yeah. All right, man. Tickets on sale this week, Saturday, December 29th, UFC 155, right here in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. Thanks for your time today, Dana.
Pleasure. Thank you, guys.